Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webcast. My name is Christine Dorsey Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio chapter of the American Planning Association, and I am your webcast moderator. Today is Friday, October 20th, and we will hear manufactured housing impacts on sustainability and affordability. For content questions related to the presentation, just type those in the Q&A box. And we will get to those at the end of the presentations during the designated Q&A. It is helpful if you, in your question, tell me who you want to answer that question, which one of our panelists. That just makes things run more smoothly for me. If you have any technical questions, you can also type those in the Q&A box, and I will do my best to filter those and get answers to you as best I can. Coming up on your screen is a list of our sponsoring APA chapters and divisions for 2023. Thanks to all those participating sponsors for making these webcasts possible and free to members. Today, we are sponsored by the Pennsylvania chapter of APA. So thanks to you all for joining us today. And we appreciate you being a member of our consortium. Up next on your screen is our next 3 upcoming webcasts. And everyone, mark your calendars, November 3rd, law session. So for those needing your AICP law specific CM credits, November 3rd is for you. So more information and registration will be coming soon. And beyond November 17th, I believe we have 2 more in December as well. So for those of you that need to wrap up that reporting period, we also have recorded webcasts that are available specifically for on-demand credit. Ethics, this law session will be recorded for on-demand, sustainability and resilience, all of the required courses, equity, which you can get today actually, are available on our website, ohioplanning.org/planning webcasts. So you can go over there and see which of our sessions qualify for distance education on demand viewing, and you can get those credits. Today, as I said, you can get an equity credit for this and also 1.5 regular AICP CM credits. To log your credits, head over to planning.org, log into your My APA account, and from there you can search either by today's title or event number. Both of those can be found on our website, ohioplanning.org/planning webcast. Give me 5 minutes. I have not put the event number on our website yet. So I promise it'll be here in 5 minutes. But that's where you can find that information if you're having trouble locating today's session to log those credits. If you're on social media, be sure to like us on Facebook. That's where I post any important date or time changes when new sessions are available for you to register for. And also be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. As I mentioned, that's where we post all of our recorded sessions. Head over there and subscribe to our channel so that you get notified when new sessions are available for you to view. You will notice that we have well over 450 recordings, all available for free. So just a quick recap again, if you have questions for our panelists, type them in the Q&A box. We'll get to those at the end during the designated Q&A. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Peter, to kick things off.
Thank you, Christine. My name is Peter Wolfhorst. I'm a member of the Pennsylvania chapter of the American Planning Association. And with me today is a retired planner, Bill Gomes. He's my backup for today in case something happens. But Bill and I had looked at this topic, and we offered it early in May, what's happening with manufacturing housing here in the country, and investment firms looking to buy them and converting them to other uses and what that does to the residents. So we have a great panel here today to share information about this topic on manufactured homes. And I'm going to introduce them briefly and turn it over to Mary. Our first presenter is Mary O'Hara. She's with the ROC, Resident-Owned Communities. She supports their strategic priority to ensure our historic work and community-driven change in neighborhoods reflected in statewide and national change efforts. So she's involved in working with the manufactured home communities to get them to be resident-owned so they can still continue to live there and have ownership of the community. We have Carolyn Carter. She's a deputy director at the National Consumer Law. She specializes in consumer law issues for over 30 years. We have Elizabeth Losey. She's the Assistant Director of Planning in Center County, Pennsylvania, and she's going to be talking about a specific manufactured mobile home community in her county that they're addressing. And then finally, we have Maureen Schindel, and I know Maureen will be talking with Mary during her remarks. She is a resident of a community in Pennsylvania that was purchased by the residents and now is a resident-owned community. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mary to start the conversation.
Thanks, Peter. It's great to be here. I really appreciate this opportunity. Maureen is gonna speak with me. We're a tag team here. So let me just get my my slides up here and shared. I believe that I have sharing permissions, and let me just start the slideshow. Everybody knows how that is, right? You have to get behind the, gotta get behind those, notes. All right, I'm gonna stop share and start the slideshow and share again. Apologize for the delay. Just take me a minute. And sorry, no, that's not gonna work either. Hold on. Technology. Can't live with it, can't live without it. All right, there we go. So as Peter said, I am an executive vice president at ROC USA, and ROC USA is a national social enterprise whose sole reason for being is to assist homeowners who live in manufactured home communities, commonly called mobile home parks. Generally a misnomer these days because homes are not mobile, and less than 2% of manufactured homes manufactured in factories, are actually moved once they are placed. So we work with homeowners in these communities. When the communities come up for sale, we assist homeowners through that real estate transaction process to purchase their communities to become resident owned. And we also have a national CDFI called ROC USA Capital, which provides financing. I'm going to just play this little video, give you a quick introduction. It's short.
My name is Lori Westendorf, and I live in Morningstar Community. Come on in, let me show you my house. Kalispell is a great place to live because there's so much to do, especially if you enjoy the outdoors. There is such a sense of community here. And in our park, personally, we have people from all walks of life. Most of the people in Morningstar Community do not have another option for affordable home. The majority of our community are elderly people who are on a fixed income. There's hardly any affordable housing here in the community. A typical 2 or 3 bedroom home in the valley costs $1,200 a month to rent, and here at Morningstar Community it's $350 a month. Society itself really judges mobile homes, parks, and owners of mobile homes. And we experienced that ourselves when we were purchasing our home. We were going to throw a housewarming party, and I had friends say, why would you throw a housewarming party when you're just buying a trailer? It does hurt. But once people come into the community and they come into our house, they just fall in love with it. And by the time they leave, their attitude has changed completely. I'll take you back here to the master bedroom and bathroom. When we first moved into the park, we actually had gotten approved for a conventional loan to purchase a home. And we thought about it really hard and didn't want 30 years of payments. And in here is our master bath. My husband did the mosaic around the tub for me. So we opted to purchase this home and move into here. And we're very happy that we made the decision to move in here. And this is our living room and kitchen, and I love how open it is. Home ownership is important to me. When you're a renter, whether it be a park or a home, there's always that chance that that could be taken away from you. We really like our island. And this is my craft room. We have our laundry area, and then in here is our spare bathroom. I love living here. This is my home. You know, whether you have a new mobile home or an old mobile home, it's their home, and they should be proud of that.
So that was just to give you a quick introduction to manufactured housing and resident ownership. Oftentimes people have ideas and visions in their minds of what a manufactured or mobile home looks like, what it feels like, and what a community is like. And generally speaking, I'm gonna do my first commercial, which is, I think, the best thing that folks could do if they're interested in preserving these communities as the affordable housing that they do provide, is to get online, find out who licenses manufactured home communities in your area, in your region, look up the communities that are nearby, and take a little tour. Take a couple of hours one day and go out and drive through some communities and get a sense of the range of communities that are out there, size, types of communities, locations, etc. Manufactured homes today are not the same as homes that were built 50, 60, 70 years ago. They have are built under the HUD building code, the only national building code in the country. And that code has been improved twice to include additional energy conservation upgrades that were not previously available. There's actually one of the largest manufacturers is moving to a all net zero, essentially calling it race to the top. A net zero model that once a homeowner decides to put solar on there, they could have a fully net zero home. They are, as this says, very little waste. That little trash bucket that you see on the left is all of the trash from the construction of one home. So in terms of sustainability, as well as energy conservation, it's really a new way of thinking about home building. This just gives you a quick picture of where the majority of manufactured home communities are. There's somewhere between 40 and 50,000 manufactured home communities across the country. They are the most affordable home ownership that the country offers, and for most part, completely unsubsidized. Just to give you that sense, for ROC USA and the communities that ROC USA Capital finances, more than 80% of the 312 resident-owned communities that ROC USA has helped create and continues to support with technical assistance and training and peer-to-peer relation is below 80% median income. over, I think it's 59% is below 60% of median income, and well over a third is below 30% of median income. So for those of you who are thinking about affordable housing, this is what we're talking about, and homeownership. The threat that we are looking at out there across the country in terms of these manufactured home communities, if you haven't taken a look at this presentation by John Oliver, it's worth it. It's from 2019. Of course, being John Oliver, it does have some raunchy language, so just beware when you watch. But it's a very good summary of why there is this tremendous pressure on these communities to remain affordable and why preservation is so important. They are being purchased by private equity firms at a rapid rate. The goal is to raise the rents as quickly as possible, to put as little capital improvements into the properties themselves, water, sewer, electric infrastructure, and have a 3 to 5 year hold period, sell at a couple of $1 million more than what they were purchased for. And the homeowners, as one of the primary actors in this work, is investor in this area, has said, these homeowners are trapped. Their home is not going to be moved. They're in the most affordable housing in most of the places where they live, and they're going to pay those rents no matter what you put them at. So essentially, go for it. Just to give you an idea about why resident ownership, when the residents come together and form a cooperative corporation and purchase the community themselves, there's just benefits, which Margaret's going to talk about more fully in terms of what's the impact when residents own communities. We have been doing this work for over 40 years now, started in New Hampshire, and not ever had a single resident-owned community make the decision that they would rather resell to the commercial market and no longer be resident-owned. So there is a clear impact in terms of affordability, of rents, the ability to actually build some wealth in your home, because no one is capturing the appreciating value by raising rents on the land. And so the homes absolutely have a chance to build wealth for those homeowners. The ability to improve the community, take care of the basic infrastructure that has often been neglected. Not all communities, there are community owners out there, particularly the mom and pop owners who have owned their communities for many years, and some of the larger community owners have made an effort to reinvest in the community, but many of them are significantly deteriorated, and having the opportunity to make those investments once the homeowners own them is a top priority. So just a quick look at the resident ownership piece. We're up to 313 resident-owned communities. I think, Peter, the last time that we talked about this in Pennsylvania, we were still at 308. So we're rapidly working to preserve communities as affordable as quickly as possible. We do a third-party study of the rents on a regular basis, and most recently it has continued to improve. So ROCs, resident-owned communities, are raising their rents on average 1% per year versus 5.9% across the industry average. So this is affordable housing that actually becomes more affordable. Really something that most communities are not able to do in any other area of their affordable housing work. How does the model work? It's a limited equity cooperative or a shared equity affordable housing model. The homeowners continue to own their homes. When you want to move from the community, you sell your home. They own a membership share of the corporation. The corporation is generally speaking run as a cooperative. We have a set of template bylaws and policies, articles of incorporation. We've really tried to create a standardization so that communities can work with one another. And when they talk to one another about their issues, policies, operating standards, they're all talking apples to apples. There's just a cooperative spirit in terms of shared governance. The members of the community, the homeowners are the members of the community. They elect their board of directors. They approve their budget every year. They approve their capital improvement plan, and they share the responsibility amongst themselves for the operation of the community. They're all professionally managed. They hire a property manager, just like any other community owner would. They simply step into the role of the community owner. As I said, it's 40 years, and these communities have managed quite well. We have not had a community just make the decision in those 40 years to resell to the commercial market. And the recently in Massachusetts, the Department of Environmental Protection said, oh my God, the difference when the residents own the community than when it's commercially owned, night and day. It's just so different in terms of the public health requirements and the environmental protection issues that we face in these communities. I'm going to let Maureen talk a little bit about her community and her experience, because I think it's a very good representation of what other communities experience as well. Maureen, you want to step in here?
Sure. Thank you, Mary, and thank you all for joining us today. As Mary mentioned, I am in Evergreen Village Cooperative. I was actually the interim president of the board when we went through the purchase. The previous owner, as Mary also mentioned, was a wonderful gentleman. It was a family-owned community for quite a while, and at some point he decided that he and his brother wanted to sell. And when we got wind of that, actually, I had to give Mr. Yetter credit. He was the one that actually turned us on to ROC USA. So we started looking into that as a community. I was witness to several calls that he was receiving from investors who wanted to purchase a community. It's you can see from the picture on the screen, this is very typical of the area. It is very well kept. I'm a realtor, and I had some realtor friends come to visit me one day, and they could not believe they were in a quote unquote trailer park, which is a phrase I totally hate. But that's what, in the old days, that's what we were called. So we're a manufactured home community right now, 158, as you see, and we are 55 and over. So there was a bit of a challenge in convincing people that this was the way to go. It's middle to low middle income, so there was also challenges as far as raising the rent. When we did our due diligence and did inspections, we found that there were things that needed to be done that were I don't want to say neglected, but let go over the years. We actually ended up with over 90% of the people voting to come in. Right now, we have 156 of the 158 sites that are members. We are still a little perplexed why the other two have not joined, but that's their business, obviously. And we recently had our first real annual meeting and our election of board of directors. It went extremely well. Concern there because we needed a majority, and we had over 80% of the residents members attending the meeting. So there's still a great interest and great enthusiasm for what we're doing. We do appreciate that we are controlling our destiny, so to speak, and that we are the ones that make the decisions about what gets done and what doesn't get done. And I'll be honest with you, our biggest challenge these days is getting contractors to come in and make bids. So we have a whole schedule of capital improvements to be done. And our most recent holdup is because we're having trouble getting contractors in. They're extremely independent and sometimes difficult to work with. But other than that, the community is really very friendly. As a 55 and older community, we all look out for each other. Everybody knows if somebody hasn't seen somebody for 2 or 3 days, we want to check in on them. It is still very attractive to many buyers. I was actually showing a property to 2 different buyers yesterday because we have a unit up for sale, and it's very desirable community. One of the gentlemen who came to see the house, one of the others asked, well, why are you doing that? And the gentleman that was seeing the house answered it for me and said, well, they don't want somebody coming in and just jacking up their rents and making you move out. And that was the horror stories we were hearing, quite honestly, as we were going through the process. Investors coming in, deciding that, that house didn't fit, so you didn't have any opportunity to fix it. You had to move it. Some were coming in and turning them into Airbnb residences so that they were now vacation homes as opposed to, permanent resident homes for the homeowners. So it was some of that was really frightening, quite frankly, to us, to know that somebody could come in and just overturn our entire lifestyle. And we were not willing to let that happen. So everybody's happy now, as far as I know. And the community still looks wonderful. People are keeping up even better than before with their properties. And as the owner decided to sell, it's just human nature. Some rules went by the wayside and some things were just left undone. But with our property management company, our on-site employee working with us and taking care and going around and looking around, the community is as beautiful as it ever was. So we're all pretty happy. And we're very grateful to ROC USA and ROC USA Capital for helping us with this process. And actually, Sunday will be our 1-year anniversary of the purchase.
Wow, congratulations, Maureen. I didn't even realize that was coming up. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I know because you're a realtor, you have a little bit more insight than some other folks might have. What's been the impact in terms of sale prices that you're seeing? I'm assuming that the area, like so many others, home prices are just rising and are out of reach. I know with interest rates it's changed a little, but do you have any thoughts there?
The prices are going up. They're going up all over the area. The Pocono Mountains and Slate Belt are very desirable locations for both New Yorkers and folks from New Jersey. During COVID, it was insane, as it was everywhere in the world, or in the country anyway, well, probably the world. So we do see some prices coming down a little bit, but there are still there's still equity in the homes. There's still more value than there was when I first moved in 2019. And it's at a slower incline than some of the more stick houses, but it still is increasing in value, and people will have equity in their homes as they decide to if they decide to sell or to stay.
And in terms of being affordable, you could buy a home in Evergreen for average of what versus what you could be a homeowner in the surrounding area.
Recent homes, and these are your typically your single 2-bedroom, 2-bath manufactured homes, are listing anywhere from 90 to 125.
And if you were going to buy a stick-built home in the Mount Bethel area of a similar size,
you're talking anywhere between 250 to 300,000.
And that pretty much matches the average in general, that you can own a home in a manufactured home community for about 50% less than you can own a home, conventional home. And so it's just truly affordable. And I think, Maureen, you would attest to this in terms of a 55 plus community. A lot of times for people, they want to be in a home, a 1-story home, and they want to manage their retirement to be affordable for the future.
Absolutely. And the truth, Marian, and everyone on the call, is there are very, very few opportunities for 55 and over homeowners in this particular area in Northampton and Monroe County. And I'm actually working with some folks who are, they put their parents in an assisted living home, and it's killing them. But unfortunately, they're not able to live on their own. But right now, it's the best, in my mind, the best option for those who are self-sustaining, who can live on their own. Like I said, we look out for each other. We take care of each other. There's a social and wellness committee that was formed when we formed the cooperative, and folks are really, really a community here. And it's so important to, and heaven forbid we see an EMS truck come in, because then everybody wants to know what's going on, because we want to know what's going on with our friends and neighbors. But it's just been a wonderful experience, and continues to be so. The people I talked to yesterday, they're looking to move their 90-year-old parents back up from Florida because they don't like them that far away. So, it's just a great opportunity for somebody who's able to live on their own and independence, and can afford, as you said, the affordable housing that we offer them.
Yep. And I think that we hear that everywhere. Everywhere across the country, where about 25% of the 312 resident-owned communities are 55 plus communities. The others are all family or all age communities. And as Maureen said, one of the things that people talk about is when they become resident-owned, first and foremost, the peace of mind of knowing they will never lose their home, that they have a perpetual opportunity to live in that home and occupy that site, and that their rents will go to supporting the operations of the community, and not for anyone else to make a profit. Rather, what would be the profit is what's keeping the rents affordable for people. AARP calls these naturally occurring retirement communities. So,
and if I may, Mary, I just want to, and I forgot to mention this before, we still get calls from investors looking to see if we want to sell. So they're still out there, they're trying their best, but this structure that we have now, this cooperative structure, protects us from that, because it's not one person's decision, it's everybody's decision. But I was getting calls up until about 3 months ago. Want to come and look at Evergreen Village, we want to see what's going on. I'll be perfectly honest with you, I didn't answer them.
That is, and that is also true across the country. We have a small community out in Minnesota, and when the town manager heard in an off-the-cuff statement, oh yeah, we get called every week by someone that wants to buy this community from California or from Nevada or from Chicago, from Denver. And the town manager called the board president and said, hey, we want to do everything we can to help you remain resident owned, because local ownership is so important to this small rural town, where, so much of our workforce lives in your community. What can we as a town do to support Medelia Village? So I think that's across the board. And I know we're probably over our time, so I will rush through these last 2 slides. These are our policy priorities. Right now, so much of manufactured housing, the homeowners who live in it, and the communities they live in has been restricted to access to affordable housing resources. And another little commercial, please look at your comprehensive plans, look at your programs, and make sure that manufactured housing is not prohibited, that it has not been written out of, or in some cases written to be demolished as quickly as possible, or seen as less than best possible use for the properties where these communities sit. So we're working very hard across the country to get local communities to just change their existing multifamily programs and homeownership programs seem to have a hard time recognizing that these are both, and that they need to have access to the affordable housing resources that are available. We did get $225 million into the HUD budget distinctly for infrastructure for resident-owned communities or other permanently affordable manufactured home communities. And we're talking about clean water, safe sanitation, storm drainage systems, tree maintenance, electric upgrades, etc. These are basic infrastructure. As I said, just some of the role for planners. I mentioned Berlin and Lebanon, New Hampshire. These are two communities in New Hampshire where the local zoning boards have changed their building code and zoning code to enable manufactured housing to be built in their existing neighborhoods as well as in communities, because it is affordable. So that's it for us, and thank you once again. Our contact information is on there, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Thank you, Maureen. Now we'll turn it over to Carolyn.
All right. Carolyn was having some internet issues. So I'm going to run her slides for her. Carolyn, are you able to, can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Well, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, good. I can hear you. Oh, this is great.
Great.
Wonderful.
Okay.
This was working.
So
All right, let me get the slides up. Hold on one moment.
Great.
All right, team effort today, people. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Christine. So it's a pleasure to address the participants in this webinar. I'm going to talk about opportunities at the local level to preserve and enhance manufactured home communities. Next slide, please. So I'm a lawyer, and I like to focus then on the laws. And there are a number of states that have laws that foster resident purchase of their communities, as Mary and Maureen were talking about. Some of those laws are not particularly effective. Those are the laws in gold color on this slide. But I think it's about eight states have really very effective resident purchase opportunity laws. And in those states, resident ownership of their communities takes off. Now, that's not to say that it can't be done in the states that are marked gold color and orangey red. It's just that in those states, there's no mechanism to bring purchase opportunities to the attention of residents and to give them enough time to put together an offer. Sometimes those obstacles can be overcome, but it makes for a much slower process of enabling residents to buy their communities. So the states that have the strongest laws and where it's working really quite well are Oregon, Colorado, and all of New England, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Vermont, and as of new laws passed in 2023, Connecticut and Maine. We haven't really had experience with Connecticut and Maine yet, but we think that the laws are very well crafted and will do a lot of good. So let's go to the next slide. What makes an effective purchase opportunity law? First, there should be advance notice to the residents whenever a community is being sold. One mistake that some of the laws that are not effective have made is they provide notice only when the community is being sold for change in use, because the policymakers were focusing on that as the worst disaster that can come. that can result from the residents, from the fact that residents rent rather than own the land, that the land can be sold for something other than a manufactured home community, and then everyone has to move and often lose their homes. But framing the law that way makes it self-defeating, because when the community is being sold for a change of use, that's when it has development value. It's most likely to be priced outside beyond what the residents can afford. While when it's being sold for continuation as a manufactured home community, it's almost by definition affordable, because the residents' rents are going to pay back the loan that the new buyer got to buy the community. They're going to pay for all the infrastructure, maintenance and improvement, and they're going to pay the owner of the community a profit. So their rents are going to pay for all of that. They could just as well be buying it themselves. So that's the first requirement: advance notice to the residents whenever the community is being sold. The second requirement for an effective purchase opportunity law is a reasonable time to make a matching or competing offer. And how long that is depends a lot on the state landscape. But all in all, from the time, all in all, it's a reasonable time, and the time from notice to closing is when residents buy a community, is generally comparable to the time a commercial buyer would take. Third, there should be some duty on the part of the community owner, at least a duty to consider the residents' offer and negotiate with them in good faith. One reason for that is that I've seen community owners express the view that, well, residents certainly can't buy and run a community, so there's no point in wasting my time talking to them about it. That view is completely dispelled if you just look at a state like New Hampshire, where about a third of all manufactured home communities are resident-owned and run and are doing beautifully. But it's good to write a duty into the law so that community owners can't fall back on that mistaken impression. And then there should also be an enforcement provision. Christine, can you move to the next slide? So if you're lucky enough to live in a state with a purchase opportunity law, I urge you to include the potential for resident ownership in your local planning. You might want to consider planning an effort to educate manufactured homeowners about the fact that this possibility might land in their laps. If a purchase opportunity arises, you may be able to help hook homeowners up with technical assistance and funders. And as a planning matter, maybe you can make some plans in advance for who those, for example, what technical assistance is available in your state and what funders might be willing to help with this. Is the State Housing Finance Agency, for example, prepared to jump in? Mary didn't stress this, but ROC USA, her organization, provides technical assistance or arranges for technical assistance to be provided. In some states, the notice to residents is also required to be sent to a state or local governmental agency. And so if you're in a state with a purchase opportunity law, you might want to find out where else besides to the residents the notice goes and be in touch with that agency to make sure that you find out about it. You can also, of course, ask the residents to make sure you find out about it. And a final thought about planning is, are block grants or other local funding available to help with purchase or improvement by the residents? Let's go to the next slide. So if you're in a state that doesn't have a purchase opportunity law, and since I think it's still less than the majority of states that have one. There's a pretty good likelihood that a number of you are in that situation. Well, what should you do? First, all of the above, all of the things I said in states that have such a law. But second, this means that there won't be a sort of systemic way to give notice to the residents. So as planners, you could stay alert for word that a manufactured home community in your area is for sale. And ROC USA is active in many states that do not have purchase opportunity laws and may be available to help the residents put an offer together or put them in touch with someone who can. And another thing you can do if you're in one of those yellow, orange, or orangey red states is support efforts to enact a purchase opportunity law. Let's go to the next slide. So Mary already touched on some of these things, but other things you can do on the local level is in local comprehensive plans, recognize manufactured home communities as an important source of affordable housing for the community, and identify a goal of preserving them, assuring that they remain affordable. And perhaps you can work into your plans that resident purchase is one of the strategies that the local community wants to pursue in order to accomplish these goals. Let's go to the next slide. Another thing that you're likely involved in is zoning. Mary touched on this too. Zoning is usually used to exclude manufactured homes and manufactured home communities from certain areas. But zoning and planning can be favorable to manufactured home communities and can be used to preserve them. For example, manufactured home only zoning, and I put only in quotes because it's not really only, but it's a similar approach to single family zoning, allowing single family homes, or in this case, manufactured home communities, allowing ancillary uses consistent with the neighborhood character, and allowing other uses that are not more remunerative than single family residences, or in this case, manufactured home communities. That means that there would need to be a zoning change in order to turn a manufactured home community into something else. Let's move to the next slide. So then, speaking of zoning changes, zoning often precedes closure. Zoning changes often precede closure. Many states require residents of manufactured home communities to be given advance notice of a proposed zoning change, just as abutting property owners or nearby property owners are. If your state is one of those, you should be alert for those notices. But if not, can this be required by ordinance? I don't know, but it might be worth exploring. If it's not required by ordinance and not required by statute to give the residents notice of a proposed zoning change, can local government at least publicize the proposal? It can give notice to residents themselves. Some states require the proposed change to be submitted to the county planning office for its recommendation. So I would urge you to be alert to these and consider the need for affordable housing, the interests of the residents, the possibility of resident purchase, and hopefully your comprehensive plan document that says all of these principles are important when you make your recommendation. So let's go to the final slide. Just a few other things about local zoning that may give you opportunities to enhance and preserve manufactured housing. These are the law in many states, but not all states. Some states limit the restrictions that can be posed on manufactured homes. That is, they require them to be allowed in single-family home districts. And some mandate treatment of manufactured homes as single-family residences. Some states prohibit confining manufactured homes to manufactured home communities. I think that could also be done by local ordinance, or they prohibit other discrimination against manufactured homes. And then some states, I think at least a few require that comprehensive plans address manufactured home communities. We can stop sharing my screen, and I will turn it over now to Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit today about manufactured home communities here in Center County, Pennsylvania. Center County, we have approximately 38 mobile home parks. Mobile home being defined as factory built prior to June 15th, 1976. Center County has only one manufactured home community, that is Continental Courts, that has a total of 413 lots. Manufactured home being defined as anything factory built after June 15th, 1976. HUD indicated last year that they were going to do some proposed updates to manufactured home construction and safety. Our office is currently going through those changes to see what we can identify. Center County is mostly comprised of mobile home parks that are older style trailers. The one such trailer park that they wanted me, mobile home park, I'm sorry, for me to discuss today was Nob Hill Trailer Park in Ferguson Township. The map on your screen, all those blue dots indicate where a mobile home park is located in Center County. An aerial look at Nob Hill Trailer Park, which is just outside of State College, you'll see that the units are very close together. The infrastructure has not been invested in. Water and sewer has been terribly neglected, and the conditions of the homes themselves is in very poor shape. A brief history of Nob Hill. It was established in 1969. There's currently 25 trailer pads at the location, and there's also a 2-bedroom detached apartment. The dates that the units were manufactured run between 1960 and 1971, so the units in this park are 50 to 60 years old. At the time that the park was established, the owner sold many families their trailers for about $500, but with that, he did not furnish any kind of deed or title or even a rental permit. In 2019, he put the park up for sale at $1.28 million, but it is now currently off the market. When we further inspected what the true value of the park would be, it was about $370,000. That being said, it is zoned single-family residential R1, but all of the existing buildings are non-conforming for that zoning. The lot is about 2.6 acres in size, so for an investor to even consider purchasing that lot, he or she may only be able to put in maybe 9 to 10 single-family homes. And that does not include any upgrades to any of the infrastructure that might be needed. Here is an aerial shot of the regional look of where Nob Hill is located. It's towards the top center of your screen, this little island in blue. Over the course of the decades, after Nob Hill was established, other residential development came into the area, and it kind of swallowed up Nob Hill Trailer Park. In the meantime, we've had additional student housing development, which is more towards the bottom of your screen, and that is the area known as the Heights. This particular development was supposed to include both at market rate units for students as well as workforce housing. Unfortunately, the workforce housing portion, which has in the next phase of phase 2, which is delineated by the purple lines you see in the center of the screen, that has not happened yet. We're not clear from the developer as to whether or not they want to move forward with the affordable portion of that development, but it puts into context the amount of development that is occurring around the now existing Nob Hill Trailer Park. To further put into perspective Nob Hill to some of the other development, the picture up here in the right-hand corner is part of that student housing complex for the Heights. Our Center County Housing and Land Trust has stepped in to help initiate some workforce housing initiatives here in Center County. They are currently working with a developer in College Township at Aspen Development, which was the former Hilltop Mobile Home Park. We had the opportunity here a few years ago to get some perspectives from a former resident at the mobile home park. He had been a graduate student living there, paying about $400 a month rent within the mobile home park because it was affordable to him. Aspen Development, currently it was the mobile home park, and now it is the student housing. It was 24 acres, and at the time that it sold for $7 million. The workforce housing units that are available in that development, they are targeting residents that are at that 65% area median income. There had been another planned development in Ferguson Township, also close to Nob Hill Trailer Park, which was the Pine Hall development. They had offered up 101 workforce units at the 80 to 120% area median income. Unfortunately, just like with the Heights, the project is on hold, given that the developer is hesitating to construct those affordable units. And just as a closing note, Patton Township is also looking at some first-time home buyer programs that they can initiate. Our planners' perspective on why manufactured home communities are disappearing. We find that municipalities would rather use the property to redevelop it for other land use options, usually things that are going to bring in a huge profit or a higher tax revenue. Looking at trying to buy an acre of land in Center County just a few months ago, on average, cost over $200,000 per acre. And in February of 2023, the average sale price of a home in Center County had been up 17% from the previous year at $400,000. Currently today, for a median priced home in the center region, not far from Nob Hill Trailer Park, we're looking at about $550,000. Manufactured home communities are also disappearing just because of our stricter zoning laws. They do exclude new manufactured home communities in areas that are rapidly growing and developing. We're finding that the minimum lot size requirements for some of our zoning push manufactured home communities into more rural areas, and that's putting them away from jobs and amenities, including public transportation. And of course, there is NIMBYism from the surrounding homes and businesses in the area when it comes to manufactured home communities. Nob Hill Trailer Park also gets it's mismanagement that also adds to that NIMBYism, because we can see sometimes that there are some complaints of unsightly upkeep of properties. But how can planners help? Here in Center County, we've been looking at ways that we can assist our municipalities, providing some detailed site analysis and research, trying to help them implement rezoning to engage public spaces and public amenities for our manufactured home communities, helping them understand that landscaping and safe walkable areas are important. implementing inspection programs that can go along with strict standards in the lease. When we know that a manufactured home community is going to go up for sale, we need to talk with our local housing authority or nonprofits, such as our Habitat for Humanity. We're diligently looking for potential financing programs that could help those residents upgrade or repair their units to improve their current conditions. In the event that a mobile home park would be faced with foreclosure, we want to start to work closer with our nonprofits and our human resource agencies if any kind of relocation assistance would be needed. We also want to stress advocating that HUD remove some of the unnecessary regulations that they have on what is classified as a manufactured home. And we also want to advocate any of our state and local governments to allow for manufactured homes on land transferred to them by the federal government. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I believe we can take questions.
Great. Thank you. So folks, again, type your questions into the questions box, and let's get started. If all of my panelists wouldn't mind turning their cameras back on so we can see you, and we'll get started. We have some great questions here already. So the first one is, and I guess this is for anyone who has comments on this. Are restrictive covenants involved, and are they useful in maintaining the appearance of these types of communities as much as municipal zoning, for example?
In my experience, the two things that affect the curb appeal, if you will, of manufactured home communities is the level of investment and care that the property owner provides, and those are generally regulated. At least on the infrastructure side, it's generally regulated by the local public health department in locales, county public health, sometimes it's town public health, and that's for water, sewer, electric, etc. In terms of the homeowners, in the community rules are usually the definitive factor in terms of how homeowners are required to maintain their lots and the exteriors of their homes. And whether or not those are enforced is, again, generally up to the property owner. It is certainly one of the things with resident ownership that we see a huge difference. When the homeowners own the community, it actually makes sense for them to invest in the maintenance and upkeep of their home. And there's a huge change in terms of what people are willing to invest in the outside of their house. A lot of times when you go into communities and you go inside somebody's home, it looks unbelievable. And the outside is what is less maintained. But you know, in a commercially owned community, in a community like the community that Elizabeth was describing, you know, anytime the surrounding home values go up, those are usually captured by the property owner by raising the rents. So for a homeowner to invest in their home and be able to realize the benefits of that investment, they need to own the land as well. And that's why I feel like resident ownership has really made a difference in those communities. And certainly why you hear town managers, DEP, public health, speaking so highly of a resident-owned community in comparison. And even the issues of crime and, you know, all the rest of that, again, what we hear right from, you know, the chief of police. Now that the residents own the community, we just go out there for a courtesy to drive through the community. But the number of calls that we get have decreased tremendously. I don't know of any situations, and Maureen might know more, in terms of a town having covenants against the property owner to hold the property in some type of curb appeal or that area other than the public health requirements.
No, I'm not aware of any. It's really, as Mary said, it's driven by our rules and regulations, which were established by residents of the community prior to us becoming cooperative, and then voted on by all the members. So we certainly don't want to get into a tattletale situation, but I can tell you that some of the properties that were not really up to par have since been cleaned up and beautified, if you will, because there's I don't know if it's an obligation or a guilt or whatever, but now that they're part owner, they want to make sure that their property looks even better. So before it was like, well, I don't know the land. It's, Yetta's owns it, and who cares? But now it's like, oh, I own it. And my neighbors look good, so I better make my house look good too. So it's really worked out well. And as far as the community, we hire a landscaping company, and they honestly, the first one didn't work out. So we ended up going to another company that is fantastic, and we just watch. We make sure that we're happy with what they're doing, and we just look out for our neighbors. If somebody can't mow their lawn, the community, the community can do it, but honestly, somebody will, their neighbor will come over and on their mower and say, let me mow your lawn for you if you can't get it done. So it's, again, I go back to that sense of community and pride in what we have and what we have developed.
Next question. When you're trying to support this initiative and talking to your elected officials, your decision makers, and I have some questions about like where to begin. But first and foremost, a lot of times you'll start to catch people's ears when you talk about money and cost savings that the community can save money because of this. So like, what do the property taxes look like on manufactured homes, like when the community owns it themselves versus it, being owned off-site? And are there any cost savings that you can see, or, ways in which the community, the city, the township, whoever, that it's a good lucrative deal for them?
It's really interesting, Christine, that question, because I'm going to say what we've seen most often is that all town aldermen, city councils, town administrators actually don't realize that in manufactured home communities, they're collecting taxes twice. There's a commercial property tax on the value of the commercial property itself. And then there's a tax on the homes. Either they're taxed as excise tax as personal property, or they're taxed as real estate. We even have some states we've just discovered, because we just did this research, where they don't allow the home to be converted from personal property to real property in a manufactured home community, but they tax them as real property, even though they're not allowed to be real property. So the commercial property taxes, depending on the state, can be very high, and the resident-owned communities, that's what they pay with the rents that they continue to pay to the co-op corporation. And thus far, there's only the state of Montana has actually created a process where they provide a lower assessment on the commercial property, because it is permanently affordable. It will never be resold for a profit. So therefore, they've actually assessed it as affordable housing. But across the board, other than Montana, every community is continuing to pay standard commercial property taxes. And one of the things that they have to deal with these rising costs to buy the community is, you know, the community owner who owned it previously bought it for $7 million. Now he's selling it to the residents for $13 million, and the property tax is going to go up to that new value, and the residents have to absorb that by raising their rents in order to purchase the community. So I think that that's a misconception sometimes in terms of how these communities are taxed. And in addition, they often don't get town and city services. So they are paying for their own snow plowing, they're paying for their own paving of their roads, they are paying for any of the services to maintain the community are taken care of, again, by the homeowners in the community. They're not part of the city services, you know, to repair their water pipes, their sewer pipes, to redo their storm drainage. They are building their own storm shelters, and often they are providing the opportunity for local neighbors outside the community to also use that storm shelter. So I think there's a little misconception there. Maureen, I think you want to say something.
No, I was just going to say, as far as the water and sewer, we actually have our own water tower and our own sewer system. So we are not beholden to the city at all. And as Mary said, they, you know, the state police will drive through once in a while if we need them, or, you know, or they have nothing else to do. But otherwise, it's all us. It's all us. The roads, the sidewalks, everything is the cooperative's responsibility.
Thank you. And I also think there was one other question about storm shelters. So you answered that one without me even having to ask it. So that's great. Man, these questions are so good. Next one. In terms of a community that's doing housing studies, or I don't know, even like with the census or community, you know, like the smaller community level censuses, do we consider these resident owned communities, are they tracked as owned or rented? Do we know?
They were talking about homeowners owning the home and the corporation owning the land. So I would assume if you're doing something like a census, you would conduct it as same way that you'd consider a condominium, or
Okay.
essentially. It's just that they're not owning the unit, they're owning the house itself. So it's really a leasehold interest in the cooperative, right? The homeowner owns their home and has a proprietary lease to occupy that site. And then their ownership of the corporation is separate.
Right. And there's a lot of communities now that are like that, especially in the 55 plus arena. So this is interesting, and I thought of this, and I'm glad somebody asked it. Can we look to these communities for subsidized housing and officially like affordable housing? Has anyone done any research on the feasibility of that? If that has been used in any communities? Really just like comparing the cost of traditional subsidized housing versus using these, not that, you know.
So I'm not quite sure I got the question right. There are, and it's becoming more and more necessary if we don't want to raise the rents so that they're unaffordable when the residents purchase them. So we're in a situation, I mean, you could see from the rent increase that Maureen's community took on in order to own the community themselves. Now that private equity has gotten involved in this area and they're driving these prices, and they're looking at, you know, 4% and 5% cap rates. And honestly, part of the strategy is to look for communities that have rents below what they consider to be the market rate rents. So they are targeting the communities that are most affordable because they'll be able to raise the rents to a level that will then allow the cash flow to give them a sales price well above what they paid for it. So we do have situations where cities and towns and states, HFAs, are collaborating with ROC USA and creating, and I'll use the Colorado example because it's the most recent. They've created a capital pool, and it involves HFA money, their local housing trust money, a public health foundation has included several $1 million. It's a $50 million pool, and it is able to provide capital for the purchase to the co-ops so they can get lower cost financing and not have to raise their rents so extensively. They have clearly recognized this as affordable housing. Preservation of these communities as permanently affordable housing, permanently available as manufactured home communities, not under the threat of closure and being turned into something like luxury condominiums. I mean, I thought Elizabeth's points around what's happened in her county, where developers do the first phase, but then when it comes to building the workforce housing, maybe not so much. So I think that this is why preservation is so important. And clearly there is recognition that this is affordable housing. ROC USA Capital as a CDFI is a 501c3 tax exempt CDFI and a nonprofit, and it got a distinct IRS letter to say this is eligible for tax exemption because preservation of these communities is considered a great public benefit. Does that answer your question, Christine, or were you
Yes.
like looking for something
No,
more?
yep. Nope. That's
Okay.
great. So I want to take a step back, and maybe this is just for me and I'm the only one on the line, but could we just go over some definitions really quick and the difference between like a modular home, a manufactured home, a tiny house, stick build? Are they all the same? Like, can they be zoned all the same? Can we put a tiny house or a stick built house or a modular home in with a manufactured community? Just can we get the playing field level here?
I love defining terms. I wish everyone in media would just define their terms. A modular home is a home that's built in a factory, and it is required to be built to the local building code for where it is going. It is not built on a metal chassis. It's usually built with wood, and it's a wood box that is brought out and assembled on a foundation, either on an owned piece of land or in a subdivision, etc. Generally not in a mobile home park or a manufactured home community. A manufactured home, that title manufactured home, is strictly HUD code homes. So they are built to the HUD code that was established in 1976, and you'll hear pre-76 homes and post-76 homes. Anything built pre-76, like the homes in the community that Elizabeth was showcasing there, they were not built to the HUD code. And the HUD code established for the first time a national building code, which in some states it exceeds the local building code. And in other states it is less than, or other cities and towns, I would say. As someone said to me, I don't think that Cambridge in Massachusetts would consider the HUD building code to be acceptable. Probably not. But you can, you do not have to meet any local building code where a manufactured HUD code home is being used. They are also built for the weather conditions of where they're going. So if it's going into Tornado Alley, it has to be built in the factory to the wind requirements for that area. They're built for snow load in the Northeast and the upper Midwest. They're built for the humidity, etc., in the South. So the building code is a national building code, but it is adjusted depending upon where it's going. Tiny homes are not built to any code, and they are Generally, as far as I know, they're mobile. They can be moved once they're sited, and they do not have installation requirements. Modular homes have to be installed to the local building code. Manufactured homes have to be installed to the federal code. And generally speaking, you know, it can be a number of different types of installation. There is FHA Title I installation requirements, and some states use those. What was the other one that you?
Stick build?
Stick built is essentially anything that's conventionally built on site, sort of your conventional home builder. For most communities, the industry is going to land lease communities, sort of a title that they like to use. Some do allow modular homes, manufactured homes, and tiny homes, and stick built homes, actually, some communities. Many states, if you're going to be in a manufactured home community, you have to be a HUD built home. So they do not, HUD code home. They don't allow modulars in those communities because, as I think Elizabeth noted, you know, definitely the lot sizes are a lot denser than what most single family zoning code is requiring. Anybody
for the
can correct me.
definition, listen. This was great. Thank you. Okay. I think we have time maybe for 2 more questions. So this one, let's do, how does eminent, so maybe Carolyn, let me unmute you because I think you should be able to unmute yourself now. How does eminent domain purchases, how do they work with manufactured communities? Are homeowners able to relocate their homes to other communities and land areas? How's that work?
Well, first, most of the state purchase opportunity laws, or at least many of them, exempt eminent domain purchases. That is, that means that if the government's buying the land through eminent domain, the residents don't have the right to override the government and buy it themselves. That's sort of just built into the idea of eminent domain. Again, on the opportunity to purchase issue, I have heard of instances in California where I think it was eminent domain that the local government used to acquire a property and then redevelop it as a manufactured, as a resident-owned community or as a affordable housing. For closures, when a community closes, a number of states have requirements about what has to be done in that case, and the residents have to be given, in many states, relocation assistance, which may be funded by, often it's funded, the community owner has to be contributing to a fund every year. Sometimes the residents have to pitch in. Frankly, I do not know what the rule is about eminent domain, but there are some federal requirements for people who are displaced, whose housing is displaced by government construction projects. And I think that the application of that to manufactured home communities has been somewhat controversial. Maybe someone else on this call knows a lot more about that.
I would just say, I want to recommend, there's a documentary out there. It's called A Decent Home. And I would highly recommend it for anybody in the planning world. I know Bill has seen it, and I'm not sure if Peter did get a chance to see it, but it's available online. You can just Google A Decent Home, and it does talk about eminent domain, but this was actually a situation in Aurora, Colorado, where the community was closed, and what happened to the homeowners when they were forced to move and leave their homes, primarily because, generally speaking, these homes can't be moved. The requirements in terms of the moving something and transporting over the roads are now so strict that they can't be. They're generally at risk of falling apart if someone tries to lift, if they've been sitting on a foundation for 20 years or whatever, for them to be transported. And there isn't very many places for them to go, honestly. So Christine, I think in an eminent domain situation, it's very likely that the homeowners would have to be housed in some other way. And most recently, I believe it's in Phoenix, Arizona, there were 3 communities closed, and the city was already burdened with a lack of affordable housing. And so just this huge, all of a sudden, influx of homeowners who had no place to go was a huge deal. So yeah, so I think that's what I know myself in terms of eminent domain, but I would highly recommend folks looking at a decent home.
I actually just put a link in the chat for everyone to copy and paste. It's a link directly to the film's website. One last question. You know, when we think of these mobile home parks and their location, well, as they, you know, they might be in residential zoning areas, it's very inequitable, their locations. A lot of times they're adjacent to railroad tracks, or, you know, they're adjacent to airports, or just uses that are not great for homes, but that's just where they're put. Why are they put there? And how do we make this more equitable? So, you know, especially from just even the environmental justice perspective.
I don't know if Carolyn wants to speak to this as well, but I think that the answer is they're old. So, and I think Elizabeth spoke about NIMBYism. So many of these communities were built on the furthest edges of the downtown, and the towns have now grown out to them. And so, and the uses that came in that direction were very often the light industrial use. Some of these communities were built as the early workforce housing, honestly. And so they were built near plants, near mills, near airports, transportation sites, train yards, etc. And so, they over time have become, like we were saying, the most affordable housing in the area. And therefore, I think the thing that people have to recognize is that the property owner has rights and the homeowners have rights. So if you're thinking about how can we move these, you know, you really have to think about how do we also continue to make those homeowners still homeowners, and not say, oh, well, you know, I know we're at time, so.
Thank you. And there's still some great questions here. So please, folks, reach out directly to our panelists. They are a wealth of knowledge. This is a great conversation. I don't think it's over. I think we could just keep going for another couple hours talking about all the things. Folks, as a reminder, we're recording this. I'll post it up onto our YouTube channel. It'll probably get up there on Monday sometime. If you need CM credits, don't forget to log them. The title of the of this webcast and the event number are on our website. Also head over to our website to register for upcoming sessions, ohioplanning.org/planning webcast. And thank you to the Pennsylvania chapter for hosting today. We appreciate you and this important topic.
Can I get the copy? Somebody asked about the slides, so we can get them PDF for the slides to all those registrants. And I know some of them had email contact information, but I know I sent those to you.
I can send this. I can put the slides on our website.
Okay, and then maybe the contact information as well.
Sure.
Because I know there's some questions that weren't answered that people might want to reach out to any of the presenters to get a response. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk next time.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.